She didn't storm out. She didn't cry to the press. She didn't post a cryptic Instagram or whisper to a biographer. She did something far more dangerous. She waited. And for 20 years, while the world watched Camilla Parker Bowles ascend from mistress to queen consort, one woman inside the palace walls was quietly, methodically, surgically dismantling her, one calculated move at a time, not with scandal, not with leaks, with something the royal family hasn't seen weaponized like this in a century: protocol. The woman who did this outranks everyone in that building except the king himself. She was born into this family. She bled for it. She watched it fracture. And she decided the day Camilla walked down that aisle in April 2005 that there would be a cost. The question isn't whether Princess Anne has been waging a quiet war against Queen Camilla for 2 decades. The evidence is overwhelming. The question is, why hasn't anyone said it out loud? Until now. What you're about to hear isn't tabloid gossip. It's a documented, chronological, move-by-move breakdown of the most disciplined long game ever played inside Buckingham Palace. Confirmed by royal biographers, caught on camera, verified by body language experts, witnessed by courtiers who went on the record. And when you hear it laid out from beginning to end, you will not be able to call any of it accidental. This is what a royal war looks like when it's fought by someone who was trained never to lose. It started the day the ink dried on the marriage certificate. April 2005. Charles and Camilla are barely married. The rice hasn't settled. Most of the royal family has already begun the process of quietly accepting the new arrangement. Not enthusiastically, but diplomatically. That's what royals do. They absorb, they adapt, they smile for the cameras. Anne did something else entirely. She went directly to Queen Elizabeth, her mother, the most powerful woman on the planet. And she didn't ask. She demanded a written exemption, a formal, legal, permanent document embedded in the official royal precedence rules, stating that Princess Anne would never, not once, not ever, be required to curtsy to Camilla Parker Bowles. Read that again. Written, official, permanent. A former courtier confirmed it to New Idea. Marie Claire confirmed it was part of the 2005 precedents of the royal family to be observed at court. This wasn't a quiet agreement between sisters-in-law. This was a constitutional declaration of non-recognition backed by the Queen of England herself on the first day of Camilla's marriage. Think about what that document says. Think about what it means that Elizabeth granted it. The most powerful woman in the world looked at her new daughter-in-law and said, "My daughter doesn't have to bow to you," and she put it in writing. From day one, the hierarchy was established, and Camilla couldn't say a word because it came from the crown itself. But that was just the opening move. For the next 17 years, 17, Queen Elizabeth's own precedence rules placed blood royals above Camilla in the official order of rank, which meant that every time Anne and Camilla crossed paths without Charles physically present, it was Camilla who had to lower her head. Not Anne, Camilla. Every state function, every private dinner at Sandringham, every corridor at Balmoral, every formal gathering where the two women were in the same room without the king's physical presence as a shield. 17 years of Camilla curtsying to the woman who refused to curtsy back. Ask yourself what that does to a person. 17 years of that silent, repeated public acknowledgement that you are beneath the woman who never accepted you. Those weren't bureaucratic formalities. Those were messages. Delivered in the language of the institution Camilla spent 3 decades trying to enter. Delivered by the woman who was born into it. And the entire time, Anne said nothing. Royal biographer Angela Levin documented it. Anne maintained what multiple courtiers described as an extremely chilly attitude toward Camilla from the very beginning. Not cold, chilly. The specific word courtiers chose. A wall of ice so precise, so controlled, that Camilla, who had survived Diana's fans screaming at her in the streets, who had sat through a decade of tabloid savagery, who had absorbed more public humiliation than almost any woman in modern British history, found Anne's silence difficult, unnerving. Not what Anne said, what she didn't say, the wall she built and maintained without ever once raising her voice. That is not personality, that is warfare. And then came the 50-year weapon Anne has been carrying since before Camilla was anyone's wife. 3 years before Camilla Parker Bowles walked down any aisle, Princess Anne dated Andrew Parker Bowles, romantically. Confirmed by biographer Sally Bedell Smith, confirmed by Hello Magazine, Town and Country, L. They were involved during one of Anne's breaks with Mark Phillips. It lasted years. Anne walked away. Camilla eventually married him, and Anne never let that history quietly disappear. She made Andrew Parker Bowles the godfather to her daughter Zara. Read that slowly. Camilla's ex-husband, permanent godfather, to Anne's child, guaranteed presence at every christening, every birthday, every major milestone in Zara's life, installed by Anne, intentionally, permanently. So every event where Camilla looks across a banquet hall, across a race meet at Royal Ascot, across a family photograph, she sees Andrew Parker Bowles laughing at Anne's table, sitting with Anne's daughter, photographed beside Anne at events the press covers every single year. Town and Country ran a headline in 2020 that read, "Princess Anne reunited with an old flame. 50 years of friendship. On the record, in print, photographed. There is no version of that which is accidental. There is no version of that which is passive. That is a 50-year living reminder, maintained with precision, sustained across generations, that something existed before Camilla, and it never stopped existing. It simply moved to a different table in the same room, but Anne wasn't finished, not even close." May 2023, the coronation. The moment Camilla Parker Bowles has spent 30 years building toward. The golden coach, the ceremonial robes, the crown, the cameras from 200 countries. This is it. This is the moment that was supposed to rewrite history. The moment everything Camilla endured was finally, formally, officially worth it. And riding on a horse behind that golden coach, in full military regalia, medals, sash, gold stick, waiting sword, is Princess Anne, the only royal who arrived at Westminster Abbey on horseback, back straight, jaw set, every inch of her a soldier. One woman is being carried through London in a gilded box, waving through glass. The other is riding in on a horse in full uniform. The cameras captured both simultaneously. The entire world saw both images at once, and not a single person watching needed a caption to understand the contrast. The night before that coronation, at the formal dinner at Buckingham Palace, candles lit, crystal glasses on white linen, every senior royal at the table, Anne looked directly at Camilla and said, in front of the entire family, the night before the biggest moment of Camilla's life, "You're not queen, you're the queen's consort." Princess Diana's former dressmaker David Emanuel told the story live on GB News. He said he heard it from multiple sources. The NZ Herald, the Scottish Daily Express, Cheat Sheet, and multiple outlets confirmed it within hours. The room went silent. There is no response to that. There is no dignified reply in that moment, in that room, in front of those people, the night before that ceremony. Camilla sat at that table with what Anne had just said hanging over every candle, every glass, every face watching to see how she would react. She sat there, and she took it. The next morning, Anne addressed it on camera in a BBC documentary, watched by millions. She was asked about Camilla's transition into the role of queen. Her exact words, "This role is not something that she would have been a natural for." She followed it with praise. She said Camilla's understanding of the role had been outstanding, but the damage was in the first sentence. 3 words, "not a natural." 3 words that reminded every viewer, every journalist, every historian watching of exactly how Camilla entered this family and exactly what she was before she entered it. The praise didn't land. The first sentence did. Anne knew that. That's why she structured it that way. In the same interview, asked to describe her relationship with Camilla, Anne chose 2 words, "off and on." Not "for decades," not "we've known each other a long time." Off and on. The exact phrase that perfectly, clinically, devastatingly describes a woman who appeared, disappeared, and reappeared across 30 years of royal crisis while a princess was publicly destroyed. Off and on. Every person watching who remembered 1997 understood exactly what those words meant. Anne kept going. March 2024, Commonwealth Day service at Westminster Abbey, the most photographed royal moment of the year. Sophie curtsied to Camilla. Edward bowed. They kissed her on each cheek. The full ceremonial performance, perfectly executed, broadcast globally. Anne walked past Camilla without a nod. A lip reader hired by the Mirror claimed Anne said, "I don't want to be here." Whether that specific claim holds, the visual evidence required no translation. The Queen's only daughter did not curtsy to Camilla at one of the most watched royal events of the year, in front of the cameras, in front of the world, and Camilla could not say a single word about it, because what does she say? My sister-in-law follows the protocol she disagrees with too openly? She's too close to my ex-husband? She works too hard? There is nothing to attack. Anne designed it that way. Body language expert Judy James, one of the most cited analysts in the British press, studied the footage and identified what she called barrier gestures. Her exact words in the Express. Anne looked as though she might be ignoring or cutting Camilla rather than avoiding her. Trained professionals, frame by frame, could see the wall. Angela Levin wrote that it wasn't until Prince Philip died in April 2021, 16 years after the wedding, that Anne showed any warmth toward Camilla at all. 16 years. Of standing in the same rooms, of attending the same events, of giving Camilla nothing, not hostility, something worse, indifference. And when the warmth finally came, Levin was explicit about why. Not friendship, not acceptance, duty. The priority was to support the Queen and stabilize the monarchy after Philip's death. It took 16 years and the death of her father to produce the bare minimum of civility. And even then, it was for her mother, not for Camilla. The numbers are their own argument. Anne is ranked the hardest-working royal almost every single year. More official engagements than William, more than Kate, more than Camilla by a margin that isn't competitive. In some years, over 500 official events. Former Diana butler Paul Burrell called her the family's workhorse. Camilla has the crown, Anne has the record. The published public annual count of royal duties, every year. The same story. Anne works more, travels further, shows up longer, without a golden coach or a tiara. That contrast has never been lost on anyone paying attention. And Anne made sure no one stopped paying attention. September 2022. Queen Elizabeth's state funeral. The most watched broadcast in British television history, the whole world watching. In the front row at Westminster Abbey, right next to Camilla, shoulder to shoulder as close as two people can sit without touching, sat Princess Anne, the woman who secured the curtsy exemption the day Camilla married in. The woman who maintained 17 years of precedence, rules that kept Camilla beneath blood royals. The woman who spent 16 years giving Camilla nothing, sitting right next to her, at the funeral of the Queen who protected them both. The woman who wrote the rules was gone. Her daughter was right there. The symbolism was not lost on a single person in that room. And now, it isn't just Anne anymore. Zara Tindall, Anne's daughter, maintains her own ongoing relationship with godfather Andrew Parker Bowles. Harper's Bazaar has published photographs of them together at multiple racing events. 3 generations of connection. Andrew to Anne, Anne to Zara, Zara back to Andrew at Royal Ascot every year. And none of those connections run through Camilla. Anne didn't just maintain the tie herself. She passed it to her daughter. She made sure the reminder outlives the original wound. She made sure the next generation carries it forward. Now, step back. Look at the full timeline. 2005. Curtsy exemption secured in writing, day 1 of the marriage. 2005 to 2021. 16 years of documented chilly demeanor that courtiers called unnerving. Years of active opposition to the Queen Consort title from inside the family. 2021. A minimal thaw, only because Philip died and duty required it. 2022. Seated directly beside Camilla at the most watched funeral in television history. 2023. The coronation dinner confrontation. Horseback at the coronation while Camilla rode in a golden box. Not a natural. Off and on the BBC, in front of millions. 2024. Walking past Camilla without a curtsy at Westminster Abbey and the University of London while every other royal bowed. 20 years. Every move documented. Every word chosen, every image controlled. This was not temper. This was not grief. This was not impulse or jealousy or the erratic behavior of someone who couldn't control herself. This was the most disciplined woman in the royal family running a 20-year campaign with the precision of a military officer. Because that's exactly what she is. She never leaked. Never gave the press a headline they could twist against her. Never dropped below the line of royal decorum. She fought this war entirely within the rules of the institution, and she bent those rules just far enough, just precisely enough, to send a message that couldn't be denied and couldn't be answered, because there is nothing to answer. What does Camilla say? My sister-in-law is too professional, too hard-working, too loyal to the family she was born into, too close to the godfather of her own daughter? There is nothing to attack. Anne designed it that way, and here is the part that should make you stop and sit with this. Anne didn't do this for the tabloids. She didn't do this for public approval. She didn't do this because she wanted to be queen, or because she wanted Charles's throne, or because she wanted anything for herself. She did it because she was the queen's only daughter, because she watched what that marriage did to the people she loved, because the institution she was born to protect was cracked open by an affair, and she decided, methodically, permanently, without a single word to the press, that she would never pretend otherwise, and she made sure Camilla understood that. Every day, in every room, for 20 years. Camilla has the title, she has the crown, she has the golden coach, and the formal recognition and the official precedence that finally, after everything, places her at the top of the order. But every time she walks into a room where Anne is present, every state dinner, every Commonwealth ceremony, every family Christmas at Sandringham, she walks in knowing that the woman across from her has never bowed, has never softened, has never, for a single moment, accepted what the official documents say. The crown says Camilla is queen. Anne's eyes say something different, and Anne has been saying it, without a word, for 20 years. The question isn't whether this is over. The question is, what happens when the only person in that building who could have stopped it, the man who caused all of it, eventually can't, because Anne is still there, Zara is still there, Andrew Parker Bowles still shows up at Ascot every summer, and the campaign that was never supposed to be visible has already lasted longer than most royal marriages. This isn't finished, not even close.